Good evening. My name is John Marshall. I'm the Capital Strategies Director with UFCW 3000, and it's my pleasure to be with you here virtually this evening to review the main points from our recent white paper, Bullies at the Table, which we supported the Economic Roundtable in producing and releasing last week. I am going to pull up some slides to share with you to help me go through the main takeaways. And as I'm doing this, I'll just say I'm sorry that I was not able to be with you live this evening, as I often am, but hopefully this will be a helpful overview. And if you have questions, I'm going to make sure that you have the ability to send them to me at the end of the presentation. So again, this is I think an excellent, comprehensive white paper that tries to document the level of understaffing that many of you experience on a daily basis in the stores. This is something that we continue to hear about every day. And the challenge that we have had is turning stories and anecdotes into evidence and information that we can use with reporters, with elected officials, and with other decision makers that will help us address these issues at the bargaining table and beyond. Again, this report was supported by UFCW Locals 7, 324, 770, and 3000. And this collaboration, I think, is reflected in the great collection of voices from members from all those locals that are represented here in the report. So I'm going to give an overview, and then I'm going to share some of the excellent social media graphics that your great communications department put together to help get the word out about this report. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the coverage we've gotten so far, and then let you know how you can find a copy of the report so you can read it yourself. So let me jump right in here. So the top line takeaways, again, this is not new information for most of you, but it's what the report seeks to document and show. Number one, over the last several years, Kroger and Albertsons have reduced staffing while workloads have increased. The staffing crisis has resulted in operational problems like longer lines, more frequent out of stocks, and declining customer service. This short staffing has also forced managers to close department early, resulting in lower sales. Between 2019 and 2023, which is the last year of data that we had when we went to press for the report, the labor shortfall, which is the gap between the increasing workload and the declining staffing level, grew to 21% at Kroger and 13% at Albertsons, based on our estimates. I want to really emphasize that 13% at Albertsons is probably a low estimate. Why? Because it doesn't take into account the fact that there's a higher percentage of fresh sales at Albertsons. What are fresh sales? Meat, seafood, deli, bakery, floral, and produce. Those departments that are much more labor intensive than the center of the store. And so Albertsons has a higher percentage of those sales, and this estimate doesn't take into account those higher sales in fresh. It also doesn't take into account the much more rapid growth of pharmacy sales during this time at Albertsons. Pharmacy sales are also very labor intensive, and so we think that actually the number is much higher than 13% at Albertsons. But nonetheless, 13% or 21% is far too high. Taking a step back here, if you look at these companies, they're extremely profitable. 5 years after the onset of COVID, Kroger and Albertsons continue to report abnormally high profits. And I'll go into more detail about that in a minute. But instead of investing those profits into better wages, more staffing, or lower prices, the companies prioritized huge payouts to Wall Street in the form of stock buybacks and increased dividends. Between 2018 and 2022, together they paid out $15.8 billion to Wall Street investors. And just in December of 2024, right after the court blocked their merger, Kroger and Albertsons together announced $9.8 billion in new Wall Street payouts. So these companies are profitable. They have billions of dollars in cash, but they're choosing not to invest it in the stores. The surveys that were done as part of the white paper are very revealing about what's going on as a result. UFCW local members indicate in their responses significant understaffing in the stores. 87% say there's not enough staff at my store. 70% say product sits in the back room due to lack of staff. 75% say workers cannot complete all assigned tasks during their shifts. There's lots of evidence as well that Kroger and Albertsons are overcharging customers. 92% of members surveyed say stores are raising prices higher than costs. It's really interesting because we know that the profits that they're reporting over the last several years are occurring at the same time as they're growing e-commerce sales. The thing about e-commerce sales is those sales are not profitable. In fact, they lose money on every e-commerce sale. So if they're making record profits overall, it must be because they're charging extra high prices on traditional sales to make up for the losses, the growing losses in e-commerce. In fact, just yesterday, Consumer Reports released a bombshell study that found that Kroger in particular has been carrying on widespread overcharging of customers, and they connected the problem directly to understaffing, specifically because they found that sale tags and other price tags on the shelves are often old and out of date. So there's not enough staffing to have people come and update the tags to reflect the accurate prices that customers are being charged at the register. This means that Kroger, in this case, appears to be systematically charging, I think it's about 18% higher prices than what's on the price tag. So a significant new report from Consumer Reports that's directly connected to the issue of understaffing. Again, taking a step back and just looking at the whole industry since the onset of COVID, you can really see the growth of supermarket sales as a result of the pandemic. Starting in 2020, the middle bar there, you see that additional level of sales that resulted from the COVID pandemic. Restaurants shut down, institutional dining shut down. Everyone had to go to the grocery store to get their food. The interesting thing is that still continues today. Shopping patterns have changed. Work patterns have changed. Many meals that used to be eaten at downtown cafeterias or breakfast places near people's office buildings, those meals are now eaten at home with significant numbers of people working remotely. We estimate that last year, over $100 billion of additional sales are going through the supermarket channel compared to the pre-pandemic trend. Those additional sales are hugely profitable for these grocers. How profitable? Well, let's take a look at Kroger's net income and operating income. In 2019, they had about $1.5 billion in net income. But in 2024, they reported almost $7 billion in net income, an increase of 76%. If you look at operating income, they go from 2.4 billion to almost $4 billion in operating profit in 2024. Kroger targets about 2 to 3% profit growth per year. So in a 5-year period like this, you would expect to see growth in the neighborhood of 10 to 15%. Look at these growth rates, multiples higher than that, 76%, 60% higher. This is absolutely abnormal excess levels of profit that Kroger is continuing to report. What about Albertsons? Albertsons is increasing their profit by an even larger percentage, 103% higher operating profit, 122% higher net income. These are absolutely historically unprecedented rates of growth in profitability for these companies. Again, these profit figures are being reported at the same time that e-commerce sales are growing dramatically, including as a percentage of overall sales. So they're growing faster than the rate of traditional sales. In 2019, only 4.4% of Kroger's sales were e-commerce sales. At Albertsons, it was just 1.4%. But look at 2024, 9.7% of Kroger's sales and 7.3% of Albertsons sales are money-losing e-commerce sales. But how are they reporting record profits? They're doing it by charging more to customers on traditional sales and making more profits on traditional sales. So that's the main story. The key takeaways. There's obviously a lot more in the 150-page report. Those are the elements that I wanted to raise up. And I really want to use the great graphics that the communications department put together to help get the message out about this report. And hopefully, if you're on social media, you can help amplify this message by sharing these, in your networks as well. So here we have a great graphic showing the increase in sales at Albertsons and Kroger in comparison with the labor shortfall. 21% shortfall at Kroger, 13% at Albertsons, and a nice quote here from Connor, a member at Local 7. He says, "I can do one job well or 3 jobs poorly." A member at Fred Meyer, a Kroger banner in the Northwest, talks about product sitting in the back. I hear this all over when I visit with members at locals around the country. If there's not enough staff to get the product out of the back room and onto the shelf, you can't sell it. 92% of grocery store workers report price gouging at their store. It was one of the highest response rates we saw in the surveys. And we see a picture here from Ralph's of abandoned carts with lots of go backs in them, simply because there's not enough staff at the front end to keep the lines moving, and customers become frustrated and they give up. $9.8 billion in stock buybacks during that 5-year period, 2018 through 2022. It really is just, actually, excuse me, this is the recently announced December 2024 buyback and dividend increase announcement. $9.8 billion between Kroger and Albertsons in buybacks and increased dividends. We estimated that if instead of using that money for buybacks and increased dividends, they invested in new staff, that they together could employ 160,000 new full-time workers, making $25 an hour plus full benefits, 40 hours a week. Just imagine what that would do to operations at these two companies. It would be dramatic. It would transform their stores and their customer service. Here we have Charles Fogland, a Local 7 member who is commenting on the priorities. We need investment to make our stores better for everyone, not more money for Wall Street. The press coverage, we've gotten great pickup in the industry press, and this is a great article that appeared just the other day in Forbes. How underinvestment is starving grocery stores and feeding Wall Street. There's a great graphic of the stock buybacks that they took directly from the report, and they talked to UFCW 770 members, and there's a great picture here of Pajan Horner-Smith. Who was featured in the article. If you want to read the report yourself, you can find it at this web address, or you can just Google Bullies at the Table and Economic Roundtable, and you'll find it that way. If you have questions for me, questions about any of the material that I presented here, you can email those questions to fieldoffice@ufcw770.org. Again, I'm sorry I couldn't be with you in person live tonight, but I hope you have a great meeting, and I look forward to seeing you soon. And best of luck with the rest of your negotiations.